The wind carried dust through the empty street as Owen pulled down the metal shutters of his shop. Another slow day in the colony meant another night, counting coins that barely covered rent. He twisted the old key in the lock and heard the familiar click that told him his little tailor shop was secure for the night. Something crashed against his door. Owen spun around and saw a hooded figure crumpled on his doorstep. The figure wore torn rags that might have been clothing once, but now hung like shredded paper. A scaled hand reached out from beneath the hood, fingers trembling so violently they could barely grip the door frame. "Please," a voice rasped. Female. Young. Desperate that Owen's instinct screamed at him to walk away. The colony had strict rules about getting involved in alien business, but his hands were already moving, unlocking the door and pulling it open. The figure fell forward and he caught her, nearly dropping her when he felt how cold her skin was. Not skin. Scales. The hood fell back, and Owen found himself staring at a dragon. She looked about 20 in human years, with purple scales that should have shimmered but instead appeared dull and lifeless. Her eyes were golden, wide with fear and pain. She shivered so hard her teeth chattered, and Owen could see ice crystals forming along the edges of her scales. "I need," she gasped, "something warm. Clothing. I have credits." Dragons did not wear clothing. Everyone in the galaxy knew this. Dragons regulated their body temperature internally and considered garments a sign of weakness. Yet here one was, freezing to death on his doorstep and begging for help. Owen made a decision that would change everything. "Get inside," he said, pulling her through the door. Quickly, she stumbled after him into the workshop. Her legs barely worked, and she collapsed near his sewing table. Owen grabbed his personal winter coat from the hook by the stairs and wrapped it around her shoulders. She clutched it like a drowning person grabbing a rope, her whole body curling into the heavy fabric. The fireplace. Owen muttered, more to himself than her. He kept a small heating unit in the corner for cold nights. He cranked it to maximum and guided her toward it. She sat as close as possible, holding her scaled hands toward the warmth. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, soft skin." Owen winced at the term, but said nothing. He went to his small kitchen and put water on a boil. Hot tea would help. When he returned, she was still shaking, but the violent tremors had eased slightly. Her eyes followed him with a mix of fear and hope. "I am Rena," she said quietly. "Owen." He handed her the tea. She took it with both hands, holding the cup close to her face and breathing in the steam. "What happened to you?" Rena looked away. Shame flickered across her features. "I have a defect. My body does not regulate heat like other dragons. The cold kills me slowly. And your people exiled me." Her voice was flat. "Dragons who cannot maintain themselves are considered broken. We are sent away to die with dignity rather than shame our families." Owen felt anger rise in his chest. He pushed it down and focused on the practical problem in front of him. "You need insulated clothing, something that will trap your body heat and protect you from temperature loss." "Yes." She looked up at him with those golden eyes. "Can you make such a thing? I have seen human clothing. It seems to work for your kind. Humans need it because we cannot regulate our temperature naturally," Owen explained. "But I have never made anything for a dragon before. Your body shape is different. You have wings, a tail, different proportions. I know it is much to ask." Rena's shoulders slumped. "If you cannot help, I understand. I will find another way." I did not say I would not help. Owen grabbed his measuring tape and notebook. "Stand up. Let me see what we are working with." Rena stood slowly, letting the coat fall away. She wore only the tattered remains of some kind of travel garment. Her wings folded against her back, delicate membrane stretched between elegant bones. Her tail curved behind her for balance. She was built like a predator, all lean muscle and deadly grace, but right now she just looked vulnerable and scared. Owen began taking measurements, his professional focus overriding his nervousness. He noted wingspan, tail length, torso dimensions, and the way her joints moved. Rena stood perfectly still, watching him with surprise. "You are not afraid," she observed. "I am terrified," Owen admitted. "But you need help, and I am a tailor. Fear does not make good clothing." Something changed in her expression. The shame faded slightly, replaced by wonder. No one has ever treated me with such kindness. My own family cast me out. Other dragons mock my weakness. And here you are, a human, helping me without hesitation. Any decent person would do the same. You would be surprised. Rena's voice carried centuries of hurt. Most would not. Owen finished his measurements and flipped through his notebook, mind already designing solutions. I will need 2 days. Come back the morning after tomorrow. I will have something ready. 2 days. Rena looked stunned. So quickly. You're freezing now. I cannot make you wait longer. Owen pulled the coat back around her shoulders. Keep this tonight. Bring it back when you return. Rena clutched the coat, tears forming in her golden eyes. I do not know how to repay this. Pay me for the clothing when it is finished. That is enough. Owen walked her to the door. Stay warm, Rena. She stepped into the night, wrapped in his coat, and disappeared into the shadows between buildings. Owen locked the door and stood in his workshop, staring at his notebook full of measurements for a dragon who should not need clothing. He had no idea he had just made a promise to the daughter of the most powerful being in the sky. Owen's fingers moved across the holographic display, scrolling through page after page of dragon biology. The colony library had limited information, but what he found fascinated him. Dragons were ancient, their civilizations spanning thousands of years. They valued strength above all else and viewed any physical weakness as a stain on their honor. And oh wonder Rena had been cast out. He switched to his design pad and began sketching. The cloak would need to accommodate her wings without restricting movement. A standard human design would never work. He drew and erased, until his workspace was covered in failed attempts. 3 hours passed. Then 4. Owen's eyes burned from staring at the screen, but he kept working. He thought about Rena's face when she had clutched his coat, the desperate gratitude in her eyes. She had been left to die simply because her body worked differently. The anger he had pushed down earlier returned. He used it, channeling it into his work. By dawn, he had a design. The cloak would wrap around her torso and shoulders, with clever openings that allowed her wings to extend freely. The tail would have its own insulated covering that attached to the main piece. He planned to use thermal weave fabric, the same material miners used when working in deep caves where temperatures dropped below freezing. But thermal weave alone would not be enough. Owen pulled out his supply of micro-heating threads, thin filaments that generated warmth when exposed to ambient energy. They were expensive, and he had been saving them for a special project. This qualified that he worked through the day, cutting and sewing with absolute focus. His hands moved with practiced precision, each stitch placed exactly where it needed to be. The thermal weave was difficult to work with, stiff and resistant, but Owen had handled worse materials. When evening came, the shop door opened. Rena stepped inside, still wearing his coat. She looked better than the night before, but still shivered slightly. You came back, Owen said, looking up from his work. You asked me to. Rena moved closer, eyes widening as she saw the partially completed cloak spread across his table. Is that for me? Who else would it be for? Owen, I need you here so I can fit it properly as I work. Dragon bodies are not like human bodies. I cannot guess at how it will move. Rena sat carefully in the chair he indicated. She watched him work for several minutes in silence before speaking. Why are you doing this? Because you need help, but I'm a dragon. Your people and mine have no great friendship. We barely trade, barely speak to each other. Most humans fear us. Owen threaded his needle without looking up. Do you know what I see when I look at you? A customer who is cold and needs appropriate clothing. Everything else is just noise. Just noise, Rena repeated softly. You say it so simply. It is simple. Owen began attaching one of the wing panels. May I ask you to extend your right wing? I need to see how the fabric moves. Rena complied, her wing unfolding in a graceful arc. The membrane caught the workshop light, revealing delicate patterns in shades of purple and silver. Owen studied how her muscles moved, how the wing connected to her shoulder blade, and adjusted his design accordingly. Tell me about your home, he said as he worked. If you want, I mean. It might help pass the time. Rena was quiet for a moment. We live in floating cities above the clouds. Massive structures held aloft by gravity manipulation technology our ancestors developed millennia ago. The air is thin but perfect for us. We can see the stars even during the day. That sounds beautiful. It is. Or it was for me. Her voice carried a note of longing. I had a chamber in the northern tower. I could watch the sun rise over the cloudscape every morning. My family is old, respected. We have served the Sky King for generations. Owen's hands paused for just a second before continuing. The Sky King, our ruler. He commands the fleet and maintains order among all dragon territories. Rena's tail curled around the chair leg. He is wise and powerful, everything a leader should be. Yet he allows sick dragons to be exiled. It is not sickness. Rena's correction was automatic. It is genetic weakness. Dragons must be strong. We cannot show vulnerability, or our enemies will see it as an opportunity. Those who cannot maintain the standard must remove themselves. It is how we have survived this long. Owen bit back his response and focused on sewing. He had opinions about societies that threw away their own people, but arguing would not help Rena. Instead, he channeled his frustration into making the best cloak he possibly could. Hours passed. Rena told him stories of dragon culture, their complex honor codes, their artistic traditions, their military might. Owen listened and worked, his understanding of her people growing with each tale. They were not cruel for cruelty's sake. They genuinely believed that strength preserved their civilization. They were also completely wrong, but that was a problem for another day. Try this on, Owen finally said, holding up the nearly complete cloak. Rena stood and let him drape it over her shoulders. The thermal weave settled into place perfectly, conforming to her unique shape. Owen fastened the hidden clasps and stepped back to observe. The cloak covered her torso and extended down her back, with the wing openings sitting exactly where they should. The tail covering attached seamlessly. "How does it feel?" he asked. Rena moved experimentally. She extended her wings, turned her body, swished her tail. The cloak moved with her, not restricting her motion at all. Then her eyes widened. "It is warm," she breathed. "Actually warm. I can feel heat building against my scales." The micro-heating threads were working. Owen allowed himself a small smile. "Is it comfortable?" Rena did not answer with words. She wrapped the cloak tighter around herself and started crying. Not sad tears, but the kind of tears that came from relief, so profound it overwhelmed everything else. She had been cold for so long, and now, finally, she was warm. Owen stood awkwardly, unsure what to do. He settled for patting her shoulder gently. "Thank you," Rena whispered. "Thank you, Owen." Outside the shop window, several colonists had gathered, watching the human Tailor comfort a weeping dragon. By morning, everyone in the settlement would know about this strange friendship. Neither Owen nor Rena noticed the watchers. They were too focused on a simple moment of kindness in a galaxy that often had too little. 5 days had passed since Owen completed the cloak, and Rena had visited his shop every single day. She claimed the garment needed adjustments, minor tweaks to improve comfort. But Owen suspected the truth was simpler. She was lonely and had nowhere else to go that he did not mind. "You are pulling the thread too tight," Rena observed, watching him work on a commission for one of the miners. "The fabric will pucker when he moves his arm." Owen looked at his work and realized she was right. He loosened the stitch and started again. "How did you learn that?" "I've been watching you for days." Rena sat cross-legged on the floor near his cutting table, her cloak wrapped around her like a blanket. "You have patterns in how you work. I am simply learning to recognize them. You would make a decent tailor yourself. Dragons do not make clothing." She said it automatically, then paused. "Or perhaps we should. Look at me. I exist because of your craft." Owen smiled and continued sewing. Over the past week, Rena had slowly opened up about her life. She told him about growing up in the floating cities, about her 3 older siblings who excelled at everything while she struggled with her defect. She described festivals and ceremonies, political intrigue, and family expectations. In return, Owen shared his own story. He had come to this colony world 5 years ago, seeking a fresh start after his tailoring business failed on Earth. The frontier was rough but honest. People needed good work and paid fairly for it. He had built a small life here, modest but his own. Do you ever miss Earth? Rena asked. Sometimes. I miss the variety of people, the different cultures all mixed together. Here, everyone is just trying to survive. Owen tied off his thread and examined the shirt. But Earth did not want a tailor who could not keep up with fashion trends. I make practical things, items meant to last. That matters more out here. The door chimed, and a large man entered. Owen recognized him as one of the mining supervisors, a rough character named Douglas who drank too much and argued with everyone. Douglas stopped when he saw Rena, his expression darkening. You keep a dragon in your shop now? He said to Owen, ignoring Rena completely. I keep whoever I want in my shop. Owen's voice stayed level. Did you need something? Yeah. I need to know why you are cozying up to one of them. Douglas pointed at Rena. Dragons think they are better than everyone. They look down on us. And here you are, making friends with one like we should all just forget that. Rena is my customer and my friend. What she is does not matter to me. It should matter. Douglas stepped closer, trying to intimidate with his eyes. You know what happens when you trust the wrong people? You get hurt. Dragons are dangerous. Rena stood slowly, and Owen felt the temperature in the room rise. Her golden eyes fixed on Douglas with an intensity that made the big man take an involuntary step back. Smoke curled from her nostrils. You will not threaten him, she said quietly. Each word carried weight, the kind of weight that came from being born into power. Owen has shown me more kindness than anyone in my entire life. If you insult him, you insult me. Do you wish to insult me? Douglas paled. Whatever bravado he had walked in with evaporated in the face of an angry dragon. I just came for my order. Then take it and leave. Owen handed him the finished shirt, already wrapped. Payment is still the same. Douglas threw credits on the counter and practically ran from the shop. The door slammed behind him. Rena's eyes continued to glow for several seconds before she took a deep breath and the anger faded. I apologize, she said. I should not have threatened him. You were protecting me. Owen picked up the credits and added them to his register. I appreciate it, but violence is not always the answer. Among dragons, it is the only answer most understand. Rena sat back down, but tension remained in her shoulders. Strength is how we communicate. If you show weakness, others exploit it. Is that why your people exiled you? Because you could not respond with strength. Yes. Rena's voice became very small. I tried to hide my condition for years. I wore heavy clothing in private, stayed near heat sources, made excuses. But eventually, others noticed. They challenged me, expecting me to fight back with fire and fury. Instead, I shivered and could barely stand. I proved I was weak. Owen set down his work and moved to sit near her. Needing help is not weakness. It is just being alive. Everyone needs help sometimes. Humans believe that. Dragons do not. Then maybe dragons are wrong. Rena looked at him sharply, but instead of anger, Owen saw something like hope in her eyes. Do you truly believe that? That an entire civilization spanning thousands of years could be fundamentally wrong about strength? I believe that any civilization that throws away people who need help has forgotten something important about what it means to live together. Owen met her gaze steadily. Your people built cities in the sky. They mastered gravity and energy. That takes incredible intelligence and skill. But they cannot figure out how to take care of their own? That is not strength. That is just sad. Rena was silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. No one has ever said such things to me before. Maybe someone should have. The rest of the day passed quietly. Rena helped Owen organize his fabric supplies, learning the difference between cotton and synthetic blends. She asked questions about everything, hungry to understand this world of textiles and thread that was so foreign to her people. This evening approached. She wrapped her cloak tighter and prepared to leave. She had found shelter in an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the colony. Not comfortable, but safe enough. Rena, Owen said as she reached the door. You do not have to keep pretending you need adjustments. If you want to visit, just visit. You're always welcome here. She turned back, surprise and gratitude mixing on her face. Thank you, Owen. For everything. After she left, Owen stood in his empty shop and thought about strength. Real strength was not about never needing help. It was about surviving despite needing it, about adapting and continuing when everything told you to give up. Rena had that kind of strength. Her people just could not see it. He went back to his work, unaware that events were already in motion that would test both their strength in ways neither could imagine. The shadow fell across the colony at midday, turning bright sunlight into twilight. Owen looked up from his sewing machine and saw darkness spreading across the street outside. Other colonists emerged from buildings, pointing at the sky and shouting point. Three massive shapes descended through the clouds, each one the size of a city block. Dragon warships, their hulls gleaming like polished obsidian, their engines humming with barely contained power. They positioned themselves in a triangle formation above the colony, blocking out the sun completely. Owen's blood went cold. He thought immediately of Rena. The colony's emergency speakers crackled to life. Governor Wells' voice, trying to sound calm and failing, echoed through the streets. All residents remain calm. We are establishing communication with our visitors. Stay in your homes and await further instructions. Owen did not stay in his shop. He ran. Rena's warehouse was on the eastern edge of the colony, a 15-minute walk that Owen covered in 5 minutes of hard running. He found her standing outside, staring up at the warships with an expression of pure terror. "They found me," she whispered. "I knew they would eventually, but I hoped for more time. Come with me." Owen grabbed her hand. "We can hide you." "Where?" "They have sensors that can detect dragon biological signatures from orbit. There is nowhere in this colony I can hide that they will not find." Owen pulled her toward his shop anyway. His mind raced through possibilities, discarding each one as quickly as it formed. Rena was right. If they were actively searching for her, they would find her. But he refused to just hand her over. They made it back to the shop before the announcement came. A dragon's voice, amplified and commanding, filled the air. "Attention colonists. We are searching for a fugitive of dragon law, an exile who has failed to properly remove herself from civilized space. Her presence here violates the terms of her banishment. Produce her immediately or face consequences." Through his shop window, Owen saw dragon soldiers emerging from transport shuttles. They moved with military precision, spreading through the colony in search patterns. Each soldier stood over 7 feet tall, armored and armed, radiating authority and menace. "You have to let me go," Rena said. Her voice shook but held determination. "If I surrender, they will leave the colony alone. Your people will be safe." "No." Owen locked the shop door, knowing how useless that gesture was. "I will not let them take you. You cannot stop them. Watch me." A dragon soldier appeared at the door. He was massive, with scarlet scales and eyes like burning coals. He did not bother knocking. His fist slammed into the door once, and the lock shattered. He stepped inside, ducking to fit through the doorframe. "Human," the soldier said, his voice a low rumble. "We have detected a dragon's signature in this building. Produce the exile." Owen stepped between the soldier and Rena. "She is under my protection." The soldier's expression did not change, but something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "Your protection means nothing. Step aside." "No. I can remove you by force." "Then you will have to." Owen's heart hammered in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "Because I am not moving." The soldier stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke into a communication device on his wrist. "Commander, we have a situation. The exile is here, but a human claims to be protecting her. Requesting guidance." Static crackled. Then a new voice responded, older and carrying absolute authority. "Bring them both to the landing platform. The Sky King wishes to handle this personally." Owen felt Rena go rigid behind him. "The Sky King," she breathed. "He came himself?" The soldier nodded. "Lord Varos does not trust this matter to subordinates. You will come with me now. Both of you." They had no choice. The soldier escorted them through streets filled with frightened colonists and dragon soldiers. Owen kept Rena close, one hand on her shoulder. She trembled beneath her cloak, but walked with her head high. The landing platform normally handled cargo shipments. Now it held a shuttle of burnished gold, clearly designed for someone important. Dragon guards surrounded it, and Governor Wells stood nearby, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. "I am sorry," Wells said as they approached. "I tried to negotiate, but they would not listen." "It is not your fault," Owen replied. "This is between them and Rena. Between them and both of us," Rena corrected quietly. "You should not have involved yourself, Owen. But I'm grateful you did." The shuttle door opened. A dragon emerged, and Owen understood immediately that this was someone far beyond the soldiers. He stood nearly 10 feet tall, his scales a deep gold that seemed to hold light within them. His wings, folded against his back, looked strong enough to carry him through storms. His eyes were the same golden color as Rena's, but filled with centuries of command and judgment. This was Varos, the Sky King, ruler of all dragon territories. He looked at Rena, and Owen saw something complex pass across his face. Not quite sadness, not quite anger, but something that encompassed both. Then his gaze shifted to Owen, and those ancient eyes studied the human Tailor with unnerving intensity. "You are the one who clothed my daughter," Varos said. His voice resonated with power that made Owen's bones ache, that Owen's mind went blank. "Daughter?" He looked at Rena, who would not meet his eyes. Understanding crashed over him like a physical blow. The stories about her respected family, her knowledge of the Sky King, the way she spoke of the floating cities with intimate familiarity. She had not been some minor noble. She was royalty, a made clothing for someone who needed it. Owen finally managed. "I did not know who she was." Clearly, Varos stepped closer. "Did you know that by aiding in exile, you have violated dragon law? That this colony now stands in violation of our treaty? I know that someone was freezing to death, and I helped them. The rest does not matter. It matters to me." Varos looked at his daughter. "Rena, you were given a ship and supplies. You were told to find a distant world and live out your life in peace. Instead, you came here to a settled colony and involved yourself with humans. Why?" Rena finally met her father's gaze. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "Because I wanted to live, Father. Not just survive in isolation, but actually live." Owen showed me what that means. Varos' expression hardened. "He showed you weakness. Dependence on another for your survival." "He showed me kindness," Rena countered. "Something I never received from my own people." The Sky King's eyes blazed, and the temperature on the platform rose noticeably. Owen prepared for violence, ready to push Rena behind him even though he knew how futile it would be. Then Varos did something unexpected. He turned his full attention back to Owen and spoke words that would change everything. "Explain to me, human Tailor, why I should not destroy this entire colony for harboring my shame." Owen stood before the most powerful being in dragon civilization and forced himself to think clearly. Fear would not help him now. Neither would submission. The Sky King was testing him, and Owen needed to pass this test not just for himself, but for Rena. "You should not destroy this colony," Owen said, "because destroying it would prove that your daughter is braver than you are." Every dragon guard reached for their weapons. Governor Wells made a strangled sound. Rena grabbed Owen's arm in panic. But Varos simply raised one clawed hand, stopping his soldiers from moving. "Explain," the Sky King said dangerously. Rena came to me freezing and desperate. She had been cast out by everyone she knew, told she was worthless, left to die alone. But she did not give up. She searched for a solution. She asked for help, even though your culture taught her that was shameful. She survived through adaptation and determination. Owen took a step forward. "That takes more courage than anything else." "Courage?" Varos' laugh was bitter. "She is defective. Her body fails at the most basic function of our species. So she found another way. She used intelligence and resourcefulness to overcome a limitation she was born with." Owen gestured at Rena. "Look at her. She is alive. She is warm. She has adapted to her condition instead of dying from it. Is that not the kind of strength you claim to value? We value strength that comes from within, not dependence on others. Every creature depends on others. Dragons depend on the technology your ancestors built. You depend on your soldiers for security, your engineers for ships, your farmers for food. Dependence is not weakness. It is civilization. Varro stared at Owen for a long moment. Then he shifted his gaze to his daughter. And what have you learned from this human, Rena? What wisdom has he imparted that your own family could not? Rena stepped forward, standing beside Owen. She met her father's eyes without flinching. He taught me that compassion is not weakness, that asking for help is not shameful, that survival through adaptation is just as valid as survival through raw power. She pulled her cloak tighter. He taught me that I have value beyond what your laws say I should be. Your laws, Varos repeated. Not our laws. You have rejected dragon culture entirely. I have rejected the parts that would have killed me. Rena's voice gained strength. I still honor our history, our achievements, our traditions. But I cannot honor a law that says I deserve to die simply because my body works differently. The Sky King turned away from them both, looking out over the colony. His massive frame blocked the light from the setting sun, casting a long shadow across the platform. When he spoke again, his voice carried something Owen had not heard before. Doubt. I stood in the council chamber the day we decided your fate, Varos said quietly. Your mother wept. Your siblings argued for clemency. I silenced them all. I said that mercy to one would weaken us all, that others with defects would expect the same treatment. I told myself I was protecting our people. He turned back, and Owen saw pain in those ancient eyes. Do you know what it costs a father to exile his own child? To send her away knowing she would die alone and cold? I have commanded fleets, conquered systems, made decisions that affected billions. None of it was as difficult as watching you leave. Then why did you do it? Rena's voice cracked. If it hurts so much, why send me away? Because I am the Sky King. I must uphold our laws, even when they break my heart. Especially when they break my heart. To show weakness would undermine everything I have built. Father, Rena said. It was the first time Owen had heard her use that word. Admitting you can feel pain is not weakness. It is honesty. Varos closed his eyes. For just a moment, the mighty Sky King looked old and tired. Then his eyes opened again, and he looked at Owen with renewed focus. You made her a cloak. Show it to me. Owen nodded to Rena, who slowly removed the garment and held it out. Varos took it carefully, his massive claws handling the fabric with surprising gentleness. He examined every seam, every heating thread, every carefully placed panel. Remarkable, he finally said. You designed this to accommodate her physiology while providing insulation. The heating elements draw power from her own bioelectric field, making it self-sustaining. This is not just clothing. This is engineering. It is tailoring, Owen corrected, making something that fits the person who needs it. And could you make such items for others? If there were more dragons with similar conditions? Owen's heart jumped. Of course, each one would need custom measurements. But yes, it is possible. Varos handed the cloak back to Rena and stood silent for what felt like hours. The dragons, the colonists, Owen and Rena all waited to see what the Sky King would decide. The fate of the entire colony hung on his next words. I came here prepared to retrieve my daughter and punish this colony for violating our laws, Varos said slowly. But I see now that I was wrong. Not about the laws themselves, but about what they were trying to protect. He looked at Rena again. We build our culture on strength because we needed strength to survive. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that strength comes in many forms. Your mother tried to tell me this. Your siblings tried. I refused to listen because I thought I knew better. Varos knelt, bringing his massive frame down to be level with Rena. I was wrong, my daughter, and I'm sorry. Rena's eyes filled with tears. Father, you will return with me, Varos continued, and Owen's hope shattered. But the Sky King was not finished. Not as an exile, but as an ambassador. You will teach our people what you have learned here. And this human tailor will teach our craftspeople his techniques. Those among us who suffer as you have suffered will finally have help. He stood and addressed Owen directly. I cannot change our laws overnight, but I can begin to change how we interpret them. Will you help me? Owen looked at Rena, saw hope and fear and possibility all mixed together on her face, and made his decision. Yes, I will help. The Sky King nodded once, the gesture carrying the weight of an empire shifting its course. Then let us begin. The floating city of Highspire was everything Rena had described and more. Owen stood on a balcony carved from crystal, looking out over clouds that glowed in the light of 3 moons. Below him, dragon architecture soared in impossible curves, buildings held aloft by technology that seemed more like magic. 2 months had passed since the Sky King made his decision. 2 months of teaching, learning, and slow, careful change. You look thoughtful, Rena said, stepping onto the balcony beside him. She wore her original cloak, now joined by a matching set of winter clothing Owen had designed for her. Homesick, a little, Owen admitted, but mostly amazed. I never imagined I would see something like this. And I never imagined I would return home with my head held high. Rena smiled. Much has changed. Indeed it had. After Varos's announcement, the Dragon Council had erupted in debate. Conservative members insisted that tradition could not be so easily altered. Younger dragons argued that ignoring those who needed help was wasteful and cruel. The arguments had raged for weeks, but Varos had not wavered. He declared that any dragon suffering from temperature regulation issues would be given access to proper clothing and treatment. He established a new council specifically to identify dragons who needed assistance and ensure they received it. And he appointed Rena to lead it. The biggest shock came when Varos himself requested a cloak. Owen smiled at the memory. The mighty Sky King, ruler of all dragon territories, admitting in front of his entire court that he found deep space travel uncomfortable, that the cold affected him more than he had ever let on, that he, too, had been hiding a weakness. His honesty broke something open in dragon culture. Suddenly, others began admitting their own struggles. A general who had hidden chronic pain for years, a scholar whose vision was failing, a decorated pilot whose hearing had degraded from engine exposure. They all needed help. And finally, they were allowed to ask for it. Owen, Rena said, pulling him from his thoughts. Father is ready for you. They walked through crystal corridors to the Sky King's private chamber. Varro sat at a massive desk, reviewing reports on a holographic display. When they entered, he dismissed the display and gestured for them to sit. I have been reviewing the numbers, Varro said, getting straight to business as always. In 2 months, we have identified over 300 dragons who require some form of assistance. 300 individuals who have been suffering in silence because they feared exile. That is just the beginning, Owen replied. As word spreads that it is safe to ask for help, more will come forward. Indeed, Varos leaned back in his chair, which creaked under his weight. The council is adapting, though not without resistance. Some still view this as weakness. Let them, Rena said firmly. Time will prove them wrong. Varos looked at his daughter with something like pride. You have grown strong, Rena. Not in a way I once defined strength, but in a way that matters more. I should have seen this years ago. You see it now. That is what matters. The Sky King nodded, then turned his attention back to Owen. I have a request. The council wants to formalize your position. They wish to make you the official advisor on adaptive technology and accessibility. You would work directly with our engineers and craftspeople, teaching them what you have taught me. Owen considered this carefully. What about my shop? The colony? You may return whenever you wish. We are not exiling you. Varos allowed himself a small smile. Though I hope you will choose to stay, at least part-time. Your work here has barely begun. There is more, Rena added. We want to extend this program beyond just dragons. Other species struggle with disabilities and conditions their societies ignore. If we can show that asking for help is not shameful, we can change how the entire galaxy thinks about strength and weakness. Owen felt the weight of what they were proposing. This was not just about making clothes anymore. This was about challenging fundamental assumptions that had existed for thousands of years. I am just a tailor, he said quietly. You are the tailor who clothed a freezing dragon and changed an empire, Varos corrected. You did not do it through force or politics or grand strategy. You did it with kindness and a needle and thread. That is precisely the kind of strength we need. Owen looked between them, father and daughter, rulers and friends. He thought about his small shop back on Ashgrave, about the simple life he had built there. He could return to it whenever he wanted. But he could also stay here and be part of something larger. I accept, he said. On one condition. Name it, Varos said. Rena becomes my business partner, equal in all decisions regarding design and implementation. Varos raised an eyebrow ridge. She is a princess of a dragon royal family. You wish to make her your partner in a tailoring business. Yes. Rena laughed, a sound of pure joy. I accept immediately. And so was done. Over the following months and years, Owen and Rena built something remarkable. They created adaptive clothing for dragons with various conditions. They designed mobility aids for those with physical limitations. They consulted with engineers on making dragon architecture more accessible. Word spread to other species. A delegation from the Insectoid Hive Collective came seeking advice on accommodations for drones with damaged wings. A group of aquatic beings asked for help designing equipment for those who struggled in certain water pressures. Each request was met with the same response Owen had given Rena that first night: compassion, creativity, and a commitment to helping people live with dignity. The shop on Ashgrave remained, now run by Owen's apprentice. But Owen himself split his time between the colony and Highspire, always working, always creating, always pushing back against the idea that needing help was shameful. Years later, when historians wrote about the period of great social change in dragon culture, they pointed to many factors: political reforms, technological advances, generational shifts in thinking. But those who truly understood knew the truth that IT began with a freezing dragon girl and a human tailor who saw someone in need and simply helped. Everything else followed from that one act of kindness. Owen never thought of himself as a revolutionary. He was just a tailor who made things fit properly. But sometimes that was exactly what the galaxy needed. As he stood in his workshop on Highspire, with Rena working beside him and orders coming in from across known space, Owen reflected on how strange life could be. He had come to a frontier colony seeking a quiet life. Instead, he had found purpose, friendship, and a way to change the universe one stitch at a time. And he had never been happier.